We've just wrapped season 1 of the Backstory podcast. Season 2 is coming soon, and the guests we have lined up are simply amazing. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we always appreciate your reviews and your ratings. It's been an entire season, and yet I realize I haven't really introduced myself to you at all. Amateur blunder. So, my name is Jennifer Nielsen. I'm a New York Times #1 best-selling author of several books for young readers, including The False Prince, A Night Divided, Resistance, Iceberg, and many other titles. I've had my share of accolades and honors, and I consider myself as having a fairly successful career. The last couple of weeks were particularly good. A Night Divided hit the USA Today bestsellers list, which isn't bad considering it's been out for like 10 years. And I learned that Iceberg would be featured in March as Barnes & Noble's monthly pick for young readers. But it's also true. I'm late on a deadline to my editor because my work in progress isn't progressing at all, and I'm frustrated with it. And I genuinely don't know if I even like the story. And the more I fall behind, the more stress I feel because another deadline is right behind it. So I'm not working on that story either. And my son broke his wrist last week, but he's out of town, so I couldn't get to him like I would have wanted. That's mom guilt. And I should be out there promoting my next release, but who has the time for that? And I tripped and fell on the sidewalk yesterday because I wasn't watching where I was going, because I was distracted by something that was absolutely not worth the ache now lingering in my shoulder. Unofficially, these are my backstories. They're the pieces of my life that I don't put out there, but these pieces are far more real to me than the stories that get shared on social media or that are posted on my website. This is true for me and probably for many of you who are listening now. I suspect it's also true for the amazing authors that I've interviewed this first season, because you see, it's in the backstory where we live our real and authentic lives. Real life is often messy. It can be frustrating. Inevitably, it's a series of ups and downs and questions without answers, or at least without answers that we want to hear. Through all of that, real life is where we find our greatest joys, the ones so remarkable they're not even worthy of a social media post. So why am I telling you all this? Because when I read the bios for the authors that I've interviewed at the start of every interview, I suspect that to some of you it seems like they're sitting on top of the world, that either fate picked them out from a lineup and gifted them with all great things, or that they were born so great that they reached their throne at the top of the world in a single bound. Neither of those are true. And in fact, I don't even think the truth is somewhere in the middle. The truth is that no one sits on top of the world. Each of us stand on our feet in our personal zip code, and we look around and we try to decide what to do with the life that we've been given. Now, hopefully, we each decide to start walking. We take a direction and a course that we choose, and most importantly, we make a conscious choice about our destination. Then we start toward it, one step at a time. That is the backstory of every author from season 1, and in fact, it's the backstory for everyone who appears to have found great success in life. Their destination is still at the horizon, the same as yours. And yet they keep putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes they win, and sometimes they lose, and both of those times are part of their backstories. So for you, and for whatever you've identified as your own destination, just keep walking. Yes, it can be tiring physically and emotionally. There are pit stops where you may pause and celebrate an achievement, and there are moments when you'll trip and fall, and the distraction that caused it wasn't worth the aches. But you will get back up again, and you will go on. And why? Because the joy in life isn't in the story that we tell each other about who we are. The joy of life is found in the backstory that has made us who we are. My backstory hasn't always been easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. My backstory is the reason I'm able to keep walking, even after I fall. So I will walk, and I hope you will too. and I hope you will let this podcast become part of your journey. We'll chat again in March with more of your favorite authors. Until then, keep building your own backstory. Keep creating your own wonderful stories that are happening now. Then hopefully one day I can turn the microphone toward you and ask this question: how did you get here? The Backstory Podcast is sponsored by Operation Literacy. Please check out their website at StoryCon.org. If you hear this message in time to attend StoryCon in Salt Lake City on February 21st and 22nd of 2025, then get yourself a ticket and come join us to celebrate all things story. You won't regret it. Until we meet again, thank you for listening.